Okay, this video is about virtual keys part 3. The first video talked about virtual keys on a static background where there was no camera view following the character. The second one talked about the camera view. This part 3 talks about how to make buttons active and not active. So when they're not active, you're not going to have a virtual key. It's not going to work. The button's not going to work when it's not active, the button. When it becomes active, the button is active and you're able to use it using a virtual key. So right now, this button here is the fire button and you're not able to do anything with it. You press the enter button, that's the virtual key, and he doesn't light up because that's the power move. When you press enter, he lights up and does something. Now, these two are virtual keys right now, and they are set to room start, meaning that they're always going to be populating. Even if he moves to another background, the virtual keys will pop back up. This virtual key for the fire button is not going to be room start. It's going to be set up for create. Create means that when he moves to the next room, it's going to destroy the virtual key, and it's not going to come back. But with room start, the virtual keys will come back when you move to the next room or press the pause button. In this instance, I made another pause where it stays actually on in the room at all times. The other pause I talked about in the past was when you press the pause, it actually jumps to another room, and then when you resume, it goes back to the room you were in originally, and that's where it would destroy the virtual keys if they're not set to room start. In this pause button, you're able to stay in the same room, and it won't destroy the virtual keys even if it's set to create, because it's a different pause code and it stays within the room. It just uses the deactivate and reactivate stuff. So right now I'm going to talk about collecting this pink box right here, which is the power. It's like a power thing you pick up and you're able to use it to fire your weapon, and then it's going to time out and you're not going to have it anymore. So when I collect this pink blinking box, it's going to activate this fire button and it's going to have a virtual key there, and you're able to press enter to use it. Or if you pause it real quick, then it will keep your virtual key there until you resume, until the timer runs out, and then it's going to be destroyed. You'll still see the virtual key there, but you can't use it because it's actually destroyed. So virtual key is kind of weird a little bit. Right now it's not there because I have a code set up where the virtual key is destroyed. But the moment you collect the power box, you'll see a virtual key box pop up, and then after the timer runs out, it's going to flip the active button to deactivate button, and it actually did destroy the virtual key even though the box is there. Just the way the virtual key is kind of wonky like that, and you're not going to be able to use the enter button anymore. So let me show you. So when I collect the pink box real quick, it pops up, and then you're able to use it when you press enter. Now you're not able to press enter anymore because the timer ran out and it actually switched the button back to deactivate. But for some reason with GameMaker, it didn't switch this virtual key box to disappear. But you cannot, literally when you press enter, you cannot do anything until you collect it again. Then you're able to do it, and then you can't do it anymore because the timer kicked on and it destroyed it after so many seconds. Now when you collect this last box, I'm going to go to the pause and go back into the game, and you'll still be able to use it because it actually did pause everything and deactivate everything. Okay, so I paused it. It does show the virtual key there, but when you press enter, it's not going to do anything because you're not in the actual room. It actually deactivated everything. When you go back to the room, you're able to use it. See? Now you're not able to use it now because the timer kicked in and deactivated the virtual key, even though it shows it there. So let me show you how I did this. Okay, so this was bugging me for a while with the virtual keys, because I wanted to deactivate buttons when I don't want to use them. So, for example, I created this game called Ninja Star, and when he flips in the air, I want all the buttons to be deactivated. I don't want him to do anything. I don't want him to kick. I don't want him to swing the sword, nothing, until he lands onto the ground. Then, that's when the buttons will be reactivated. Excuse me. So, I know in some original Nintendo games like Ninja Gaiden, for instance, when you do flip in the air, you're able to swing your sword or do some kind of power move in the air. But in my game, I didn't want that to happen until he lands onto the ground. Then that's when I want him to do something. So I wanted to deactivate the virtual key so he doesn't do anything in the air. So now this is how you do it. So all right, so for the object right and object left buttons, they are set to be room start. Okay, room start I've talked about before in other videos. That means basically when you pause a game or go to another room, because I used a different pause at that time where it actually went to a different room, it would destroy the virtual keys. But when you go back to the room, it would repopulate the virtual keys. And that's why, and it does that because you have it set to room start. If you change this to create, it would destroy the virtual keys when you go to the next room or the pause, and it would not repopulate the virtual keys when you go back to the room. It will not. So with for keys that you don't want to be destroyed at all, you don't want the virtual keys to be destroyed, I would suggest using the room start, because then they will repopulate again and you don't have to worry about them being destroyed and not coming back. These will come back. So in the room start here, it's this object right is called fkey. That's what I called it. Equals virtual key add, and then these are this is the size of the button, the 400. So the square is going to cover the whole, pretty much not the whole button, but most of the button. And then you have the X and Y coordinates right here, where you want the virtual key to be at on the button. All right, so I believe this is the X and this is the Y coordinates. And then you want to say hide. Before I just did the slashes to completely get rid of showing the virtual key, but I would suggest to leave it in and just say hide so it doesn't show the virtual key. That's what I would suggest, because that's what GameMaker suggests on their website, to use the hide. To hide the virtual key, use to delete the virtual key, or use show to show the virtual key. Alright, so then the virtual key VK_right, that's relating to the keyboard, but also it's going to be utilized for your Android device. And so you got the press right keyboard, and it does the movements, and then the release on the keyboard to stop the guy from moving. And all this would also relate to when you use your Android device, it would work as well. And the same thing would apply to the object left. Use room start, and then you have V key left, and these are the coordinates, and then you make sure to make the key different. So L key means the left button, L key, so make sure you say hide. You don't want those buttons to be revealed. And also you have a GUI in there as well, which draws the virtual key on screen at these coordinates here. And I've already talked about that in previous videos, so I'm not going to go into it. The draw event, of course, relates to the when you move on screen using a virtual with the camera view, it's going to follow the character, and you got those coordinates right there. All right, so then we go to the fire button. Now you're going to use the create instead, okay? Because you don't want You don't want the fire button to be active at the beginning of the beginning of your room. So you're going to use the crate, and you want to, I say show because I wanted to show you the key, the virtual key. But when you actually do your game, you want to make sure that's not going to be saying show. It's going to be say hide. You want to say hide instead of saying show. So the fire button is going to be called fkey. You can change this anything you wanted to, but make sure this information here relates to this information here in the bottom. It's got to be the same. So virtual key add, and then these are the coordinates X and Y, and then the size of the button 400 400. Then in this case I'm using the vk underscore enter for the fire button. Then, like I said, you're going to have an alarm set up here, so after 30 milliseconds it's going to time out. So it's going to switch the active fire button to not active fire button and be graded out for the most part. Say yes, and when that happens, it does delete the virtual key. Okay, it does delete the virtual key because when you go to object not fire, in the virtual key you say delete. So you use the same virtual key, fkey. So it's going to delete that fkey fire button because you don't want it to be active after 30 milliseconds. You want it to be deleted. But like I said in the video, for some reason GameMaker didn't delete the virtual key on screen, but you actually physically can't press the enter button on the keyboard, so it is deleted. At the beginning of when you first start the game, it is deleted, and so you cannot press the enter key until you actually collect the fire weapon. Then the fire weapon, the virtual key pops up, and then you're able to press the enter button for a short period of time before it times out, and then it's deleted, and then you can't press the enter button anymore. And like I said, for some reason GameMaker still shows the virtual key on screen, but like I said, it's not active anymore. It's actually deleted. So you can't use it until you collect another fire weapon box. So that can also be applied to other things like your right and left and down and right buttons and up buttons. You could make a crate if you wanted to. If you wanted them to be deleted and come back after doing a flip or something. Otherwise, just leave them as room start for virtual keys that you don't want to actually be deleted and come back. Alright, and then you have a draw event, and then you have a GUI event. And you don't need a step event because it's a virtual key. You could have a step event if you wanted to, but it's not really necessary. Don't have a step event in this one either with the fire button because you have the draw event and you have the GUI that kind of contains it, so it does move along with you on screen without jumping. With buttons that you don't have virtual keys on, then you would have to use a step event like the pause button. You need a step and you need a draw so it doesn't jump when you move on screen and the camera view follows. The button's not going to jump. And like I said, virtual keys will not work with regular buttons, such as moving. If you want to press a button to go to the next room or do anything like that, virtual keys won't work right. You have to use the left press event. Go to add event, mouse, and do left press. You cannot do a right press or a middle press. It won't work in GameMaker. You have to use left pressed. So use left press event when you want to jump to another room, because like I said, virtual keys will not work for it for some reason. I tried it. It doesn't work. It just kind of blinks for a second and then goes back to the same room. So you have to use left press event for moving to the next room. So now with this pause, I didn't use going to a different room like I talked about before in the previous videos. This pause basically states that you want to deactivate everything in the room, say true, except for these right here. So I don't want certain things to be deactivated. So object pause it, I want that to be active. And so basically this screen right here is called object pause it. And so when you first start the game, it's deactivated. So the object pause it screen pretty much fills the whole screen, of course. So it's actually 3300 by 1991, and that fills the whole screen in the view that you're in when you first start. And when you move, the pause screen will follow the character, so it's not going to be off, because it's got a step event in here. Step event. So when the character moves on screen, this object pause it, even though it's deactivated, will follow the character. And I just set it to 00 for X and Y view. You don't need a draw event in there. You just need this step event. So it follows the character. Whenever you want to pause, it will be centered and it won't be off. The screen will not be off. It will be exactly on spot, on cue at all times. But you need the step event in here for this to work. You just set it to 00. And then the create event, you say instance underscore deactivate underscore object. You want to make sure that this pause screen image, which is the object, is deactivated when you first start the game, because you're not pausing the game right away. So it's not going to show up on screen right away until you press the pause button. So when you press the pause button, it's going to deactivate everything in the room, which is your character and your buttons, except for the pause screen image, which is going to be activated. The markers right here, the object markers, are these things right here, these things that blink. They will be on screen when you pause. You don't have to have them in there if you don't want to, but I decided to have them in the game when you pause it. And the object back, which is going to be the button to resume. You want that to be in the room too. So this, excuse me, this object back is like the resume button. So when you press the resume button, it's going to activate all in the room except for the pause screen. So you want to make sure that's deactivated. Because, like I said, the object pause it is going to be, the depth is going to be at, well, I have it set to 30. I guess it doesn't matter on the depth, because you have everything deactivated anyways. So when you press the object pause back button, when you press the back button, the resume button, it's going to deactivate everything, or activate everything, and deactivate the pause screen. And then it's going to switch the object back, which is the resume button, back to the object pause, which is the button to press the pause button again if you wanted to. So it's going to switch the back button to the pause button, and then you can press the pause button to go back to the pause screen, and then it's going to have the resume button. Press resume button, goes back to the pause button. So that's what's going to happen here. It's going to switch. Say yes, and then you're going to have a draw event and step event for the object back button. So, when you move on screen with camera view, it's going to follow the character, even though you don't see it on the screen right away because you didn't press the pause button. But it's going to follow the character, so it's in the same location as the pause button would be in the main room. Depth at -400, and then the object player, when he collects the power box, is going to switch the object not fire button to object fire. So this object fire button that was deleted is going to be switched to active, which is this object fire, and it's going to make the virtual key pop up, and you say show, and you're adding it. You don't have to, I wouldn't say show, you just say hide, of course, because you don't want to show the virtual key. I just say show to, show it on the screen here for you guys to see what I'm talking about. But when you actually make your game, make sure you say hide. So it's going to, make that button pop up for 30 milliseconds, and then it's going to switch back to the deactivate fire button. You're not going to be able to use it anymore. Of course, you don't have to set it up with the timer, but I just decided to do that so I can show you how it's not going to be active anymore with the button after so many seconds. Yeah, so after 30 milliseconds, it's going to deactivate the fire button and go back to object not fire, and then it deletes the virtual key. And you're not able to use it anymore. You're not able to press the enter button on the keyboard, nor will you be able to use it when your Android device. You're not going to be able to press the button and it's not going to do anything because there's no virtual key there anymore until you collect the power button again, and you're able to use the virtual key for so many seconds, and then it's deleted. And then when the fire button is active, then it's going, when you press the enter button, because that's how the virtual key is set up, it's set up for fkey enter. He's going to actually do a blink. It's going to make the character blink and then go back to the player object. So it doesn't matter if he's moving right, moving left, or not moving at all. He's going to it's going to do the power button regardless for so many seconds. It's going to blink, and then it's not going to blink anymore. Yeah, so he's going to blink for so many seconds. He's going to blink for 20 milliseconds, and then I have a move free, which direction speed is going to be 0 right here. And then he's going to switch back after 20 milliseconds. He's going to switch back to the player object, and he's not going to do the power move anymore. And that's pretty much it. And like I said, I would download this tutorial here off YouTube and just, open it up and check it out for yourself. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.